Welcome back. Just trying to work out the front suspension, get the front beam on, get my semi-elliptic springs in place, but the bonnet is just too damn long. I've done some measuring and I'm thinking 3 inches I've got to take out. Just trying to work out where's the best place to take it out, because here it seems to be quite straight, but the corresponding part here has got a big hump in it. So I've got to take out the 3 inches somewhere down here, which means I'm going to have a cut at like 45 degrees across the bonnet, and then slide that bit of the bonnet back up here, weld it back together, and hopefully get a nice bonnet back. It's going to be a bit of a task because there's curves in just about every direction. What I'm thinking of doing is, although I'll cut out the 3 inches here, the 3 inches over there, all of the middle section, instead of cutting 3 inches out of there, I'll just cut down the middle of it so that I can overlap the two, and then once I've stitched this back together, I can make a final cut to get that correct. Because if I cut 3 inches out of there and it's anywhere near wrong, it's going to be very difficult to sort out later. So I'll cut 3 inches out of here, 3 inches out the hump, 3 inches out of there, but all the rest I'm just going to cut in the middle and overlap the two, and then I'll sort them out later. Hopefully that's my plan and that'll work. Let's show you how I've done this actually. I put the front of the bonnet resting on the 4-inch bit of wood where I wanted it, and it was overlapping at the back. Just shoved it back there, didn't matter. But that lined up with there, and that gave me from there to the front the correct length that I wanted. And then I put the bonnet back here so it's in the right place, lined that up and made a new mark, and then that gave me the gap that I wanted, which turned out to be almost 3 inches. So I don't want to do it there because there's too much of a difference in profiles. I moved it along a little bit, and then I'll do it here. So that's how I got the length from the back to this mark, from the front to this mark, left me with 3 inches. So I've got to cut that. I've got a plan for the bonnet. I've made myself a new tool. Next video I'll show you what the tool does, hopefully. But until then it's going to be a bit of a surprise. Right, see you in a bit. Well, I've marked up with tape my cut. When you've got a dent in the bonnet like this, when you've got a relief line or whatever you want to call it, or a fold, or don't cut on it, because it's a bugger to actually weld. Cut away from it so that you can work this bit of metal flat and then leave that in place. If you try and cut down there and then try and weld it and get it nice, it's just a nightmare. So don't bother. Come back away from it a little bit, chop that section out, and then when I want to weld this to that, I'm welding over here, over the hump. It's much easier to sort out. Just a little tip. Right, just tack the top of the bonnet in place, leaving a couple of mil for the shut line. Same the other side. I've set the gap on my bonnet with a 2-inch block of metal down here. Gives it enough clearance to hopefully open and close. And then I've just tucked all the remainder of the metal up underneath, so it's overlapping top and bottom, and this is just touching here. So first job is to get this lined up, put a few tacks in, get it nicely sort of set in position so that side's touching, this side's touching, and you can see the error, the difference between the two. I've got to work that out. So I'll be putting a pie cut probably somewhere near the edge here, all the way down, and then I'll be able to pull that over just a little bit to match this and see what that looks like. So I'm going to get rid of the paint off of this bit of the panel, get rid of the paint off that bit of the panel, and prep it ready for welding it back in. I've got at the moment, the body's set off the floor with a 4-inch lump of wood, and this is also set off the floor with the same height, 4 inches, so it'll be dead flat. If I did put it right on the deck, then the bonnet will touch the floor as well, and everything else will be level and flat. So I'm quite happy. That's a good thing, I think. Get it on the floor. I've just worked out where I'm going to get me semi-elliptic springs hung from. They go underneath there like that. Quite difficult to see, but that's where they go. And I'm going to hold the end of that where the original beam used to be. That should give me a little bit of a triangular shape here. Hopefully stop the axle going left to right. If not, then I'm going to have to put a bar in to stop the axle going left to right and keep it centered. But we'll see what it looks like in a bit. So I'll start that. I'll get rid of that bit of paint, put a pie slice in and get that cut. Just started the process of welding it back up. I've had to actually pie slice quite a long way around the bonnet to get this section to come out naturally where it had to meet up with this. So I've put a bit of welding and strengthened that, and that's fine. I just started welding up there. I've had to pie slice a tiny bit here and push this piece of metal that way a little bit so that this becomes a nice straight line again. When you when they press the bonnet in the factory, one big pressing, it puts a lot of stress in the metal, seemingly, and when you take that out and cut it, you lose a bit of the bulge, it goes all flat. So I'm going to have to spend some time now making sure that I get this tacked to that, this in the middle, that out on the outside, all nice before I do any final welding, because then I'm putting stress back in when you weld. So I've got to weld that whole line back up again. But the shape is there, the shape in the centre is pretty good. My gap at the bottom's still the same, and I'll close this gap up once the bonnet's shut. So this little bit here has got to go in probably about 1/4 inch. That's about it. No big deal, easy with a hammer. I'm quite happy how this has come out, but I'm going home for my dinner. I'll do some more work on it another day. But you can see the bonnet's now 3 inches shorter, doesn't hit the beam, clears all the insides, clears the fuel tank still, so I can still put that back up the front. I'll get some more video when it's finished. Right, there's my block of aluminium. I told you before about it. It's if you put aluminium underneath your weld, no matter how big the gap is, the weld won't fall through and it won't stick to the aluminium. So it's a really good technique for getting things flat. If I hold that aluminium on there, it levels both sides, and then I can bridge the whole gap with the weld, and that holds it exactly where you want it, flat, level. But there's got to be 7, 8 mil, 10 mil of gap there, which you wouldn't be able to just weld that normally without using something underneath it. So that just gives you an idea as to how handy it is to have a block of aluminium lying around. You can see it's level both sides, and then bridge the gap with a tack. That just gives me a good starting point. I'll probably end up cutting these out anyway, but it gives me a good starting point, all nice and level. And I've done it the same here, and then my bonnet is touching all the way across, so that I've got a really nice shape to it back. Now when I follow along there with the 1mm disc cutter from one side to the other, get rid of the excess that's underneath this panel, I'll be able to level up this to that, and then tack it all the way along, grind it all off and start again, tack it in between tacks. Don't try and do it all in one go, obviously, just little tacks, then little tacks, stitch weld it basically, stitch weld back up here as well, and get it all level and nice. And then just keep going with it really, fill this gap back in, keep going until you've got a bonnet back. So, well, that's the aluminium method explained again. You can't weld aluminium to steel, not with a MIG welder. You'd need a magic wand. So there you go. Right, that's a bit of metal that come out from underneath this. So that's how much the bonnet's been shortened by. But you have to measure it at an angle, remember, because that's the way the length is, just because that's at a quarter. So here now, I've just got to work my way along, tacking this back in place and lifting it up, put my aluminium underneath, get it dead level, and then tack it, work my way to this corner, and then I'll have to fill all the way along there with a little piece of metal. So I'm not going to show you the process because it's dead boring, but I'll show you the finished result in a bit. Starting to get some strength back. I've only tacked every couple of inches now, and I've just put a little bit in there where it needed. It's already got its drum back, so it no longer sounds like it's 14 different pieces of metal. Got a little bit to do, finishing up these bits and work my way along. Bit here, bit there, bit there, bit there. Just work your way backwards and forwards. Get on with it.